There's no you in Ukraine. That's the focus of tonight's angle. There's a song blowing up in the internet by a young man named Oliver Anthony. It's called Rich Men North of Richmond, and it's best described as raw, blue-collar country. I'll talk more about why that song is resonating now a little bit later in the show, but it speaks to what millions of Americans are feeling these days: despondent and left behind. Now, while some may have voted for Biden on the assumption that he cared about people like them, many are seeing that his homespun, grandfatherly demeanor is all an act. After 18 months in office, it's obvious he doesn't really care at all, unless perhaps you live in Ukraine.
We will not waver. We will not waver. I mean that. Our commitment to Ukraine will not weaken. We will stand for liberty and freedom today, tomorrow, and for as long as it takes.
Has he ever sounded that excited about doing anything good for the American people? All right, and just yesterday, Biden asked Congress for a staggering $24 billion more in Ukraine aid. Now, this is on top of the more than $100 billion we've already sent over in humanitarian and military assistance. Now, in case you've forgotten, America is broke, and we have massive problems of our own. Just look at our cities in decay and despair. And now the horrendous wildfires in Maui. Now, no wonder American support for Ukraine is declining. But are the politicians even listening?
If you think the United States should be supporting Ukraine in the fight against Putin, raise your hand.
Watch this. Nobody.
Nobody.
You don't have to be that smart to connect the dots, right? And so is the war to cover up sins committed so you can cover your tracks? There's too much money that's been thrown over there.
55% of Americans say Congress should not authorize additional funding to support Ukraine. Now, compare that to back in February 2022, when 62% said they felt like we should have been doing more. But our brilliant administration believes Americans get why Ukraine matters.
I think the American people understand what's at stake here. They know it's not just about Ukrainian sovereignty or Ukrainian lives. It's about Mr. Putin and stopping him in his tracks before he can go any further. I think we can all understand that if he just gets Ukraine, if he gets what he wants, and he pulls Ukraine back into Russia, where does it stop? And the cost in blood and treasure to the American people, to our financial health, obviously, would be much greater at risk.
Oh my God, I wouldn't buy a gallon.
You know what I propose? I propose that any war that is started, politicians and their kids have to fight in it as well. That's what I propose. Now, obviously, if they have like really little kids, come on, common sense. But if they have kids that are of age, right, 18 and up, they have to fight in the war that they authorized as well, along with the politicians. They've got to go with us. I guarantee you, if that was made a policy, you'd have a lot less of this stuff. A whole lot less. If they had to fight and their kids had to fight in the same wars that they're authorizing all the time, all this stuff will go out the window tomorrow. But maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. Y'all let me know.
On a milk from that guy. Like, that's the old nonsense we heard during Iraq and Afghanistan. If we don't fight them over there, we'll have to fight them over here. Well, the real problem is, as Reagan understood, we can't have peace if we don't have economic strength. Peace through strength. And the longer this drags on, the weaker the U.S. will become. Now, we hate what's happened to the Ukrainian people, but the spring-turned-summer offensive is not going too well. The generals, once again, seem to have botched another assessment as Ukraine appears stalled out right now. Now, Vox did a sober assessment of where things stand in the war, and here are some of their highlights. Kyiv is facing logistical and supply challenges. The country's struggling to conduct combined arms operations. 20% of Western equipment was destroyed or damaged in the early weeks of the offensive. And they're burning through a lot of ammo. And they're running out of time to wear Russia down, with the unofficial deadline quickly approaching of this fall. And of course, Russia has major advantages of its own in artillery and aviation, specifically attack helicopters. Of course, Zelensky's answer to all this is to demand more money from you, well, the United States. Europe is providing a pittance compared to what the United States is giving in Ukraine. But I thought the war was critical for Europe's defense, right? Remember, we're still carrying the lion's share of the burden for Europe's security, and it's obscene considering World War II ended 78 years ago. And as we continue to shovel billions to Ukraine, nearly 4 in 10 Americans report that they don't have the funds saved to cover even a $400 emergency expense they might incur. That's disturbing.
40% of Americans said that if their car broke down, they may not have enough money to fix it. And we're sending money here, there, and everywhere else. One of my things is, even beyond the emergency fund, we have homeless veterans. I mean, that in and of itself is a slap in the face. People who fought for this country put their lives on the line, put their lives and bodies on the line, and minds, you know, because some of these people don't come back the same. You know, I have some military buddies, and, you know, thankfully they're all good. But, you know, they were telling me about, actually, I've had a conversation with several of them about the, what do you call the, it's like an air defense machine thing that, you know, while they were over there, and you hear that thing start revving up, and you hit zzz, like the way that it makes your blood curdle, because you know something is in the air, and if that thing misses, I'm screwed. You know, that would play on your mind. You know, whenever in the middle of the night, zzz, you can't see anything. It's dark. You know what I'm saying? But you hear this thing buzzing. You know, obviously it's firing off thousands upon thousands of rounds, so it sounds like a buzz, but it's really shooting rounds. If that thing misses, I'll never see my family again. And to know that, like, man, I couldn't sleep. You know, I was told, like, I wouldn't be able to sleep. I'd be up the rest of the night just, like, looking up. You know what I mean? Now, that's just one instance, of course, but, you know, obviously there's other situations and circumstances where people don't come back the same, mind or body. And even the folks that do come back the same, some of them are homeless. What type of crap is that? They should be, the red carpet should be rolled out for every single one of them, in my humble opinion. In my humble opinion. That's where our tax dollars should be going, to the people that fought for this country. In my opinion, I don't mind tax dollars going to them. You know what I'm saying? We're sending tax money everywhere else. Why don't we stop doing that and focus on the people that are here, that are homeless on the streets, that fought for this country? I can go deeper with that, but that alone should be enough. You know, the fact that we have homeless veterans should tell you our focus is in the wrong place. But that's just my opinion. What do y'all think?
And Joe Biden doesn't care. No wonder his approval rating on the economy is stuck in the mid-30s right now. And it's not just Ukraine that's flush with our cash, by the way. Iran will be too, as well, now that Biden is making a $6 billion deal with Iran on the promise that jailed Americans will get to come home someday. But what's $6 billion, really, between enemies? That brings us to another infuriating story in yet another rat hole, Afghanistan. Now, how many of you know that the Special Inspector General on Afghanistan reconstruction says that he cannot guarantee that the bulk of U.S. humanitarian aid there is not going to the Taliban? But don't worry, it's only $8 billion. And how is it that the Democrats and pro-war Republicans are so emotionally pumped about protecting Ukraine's border that they're blissfully unconcerned about our own. Biden's allowed more than 5.5 million illegals to cross our open border, and that doesn't count the gotaways. Remember back in 2018, Trump requested a mere $5 billion to fund a wall along our southern border? That's about a fifth of Biden's latest aid request to Ukraine. 1/5 of one request. And think of what the return on investment Americans would have seen from that wall. But again, America is not the Biden focus. The global order is the Biden focus. And the Biden team does not care if you're worse off than you were in 2019 before the pandemic. Biden let the truth slip out yesterday, didn't he, when discussing his signature legislation, saying that, I wish I hadn't called it the Inflation Reduction Act, because it has less to do with inflation than it does providing alternatives to economic growth. Okay. To the extent that Biden and his ventriloquists focus on Americans at all, it's in devising new ways to control and limit our behavior and speech, certainly not our economic prosperity. When they say they're here to help, that doesn't mean making us richer, more prosperous, safer, our cities better, our borders secure. Stuff like that would actually make our lives better. They're not interested in it. They reserve their...
Reagan told us. He told us. I forgot how the exact quote goes, but he says some of the most terrifying words are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Some of the most terrifying words. They aren't truly here to help. And I was listening to, what was I listening to? I was listening to something. And they were talking about how, was it Joe Rogan? It might have been Joe Rogan. But he was highlighting how, you know, a lot of this stuff he feels is done intentionally. Because a lot of these politicians, especially on the left, thrive on us going at each other, right? Us, you know, for example, the races, you know, and you see it. You see it. Whenever there's something, a white person that does something to a black person, you know, these Democrat politicians, oh, we gotta march in the streets, oh, goodness gracious, oh, racism, we gotta do something. But you never see them in Chicago where there's black on black crime every single day. You don't see it. But you let a white person in Chicago do something to a black person. Oh, goodness gracious, we gotta do something about this. This racism is so rampant. It is dangerous. It is a threat to America. But then the very next day, a black person does something and they're totally silent. You know? And it's just so crazy that some people have not caught on to their BS games. But I guess it's up to us to wake the rest of them up.
Motion and their efforts to really help people for their globalist goals. Nation building, climate commitments, and foreign entanglements with no real endpoints. If voters want to change this dynamic, and I know you do, you're going to have to set aside your frustrations and vote for candidates who put America first.
Trump.
It's about time. After all, there's no you in Ukraine.
Trump, baby. Y'all know the answer. Simple and plain. Simple and plain. One word. Trump. It's that simple. I don't know how else to put it. But, yeah, it's interesting how the thought process on all of this has drastically changed and is continuing to decline. I wonder what they're going to do in order to flip this around. What do you guys... I honestly have no clue. Like, there's so many different ways it could go. Because, you know, they're losing support for all of this. Joe Biden is losing support not only for the economy, but for sending all of these billions of dollars overseas. He's losing support. So when the loss of support gets to 80%, 70%, 80%, what are they going to do? They're going to keep doing it? I mean, maybe. I feel like that's a terrible move. But how are they going to back out of that situation? Are they going to try to bribe, right, their side of the equation by, I don't know, dangling some money? Hey, here's a little freebie here. Here's matter of fact, we've expanded the student loan debt forgiveness program or something. I don't know. What do you guys suspect they're going to do in regards to the declining approval of a lot of the things that they're doing currently? Let me know. I'm interested to hear your thoughts and your opinions, because I like I said, there's so many different ways they could go with that. I mean, or do you think they're just going to ignore it and just going about their business? I don't think that's going to happen, personally. I don't. But I just don't know exactly what. Sometimes I have an idea. I'm like, they're probably going to try to pull this one off, but I'm genuinely clueless. You know, I mean, obviously I have some ideas, but that's just like pie in the sky kind of thing, you know? Anyway, y'all let me know what you thought about this one in the comment section below. Like, share, comment, hit that subscribe button before you go. Peace and love. I'm out.